in the south through Wednesday night into Thursday. Sophie.
Ben, thank you. And that is it from us. It's time now for the news where you are. Goodbye.
Welcome to Spotlight. Tonight, victory for those who rallied against controversial plans to scrap rail ticket offices.
I was in the middle of the street and I went, yes, because I was so happy. It's brilliant news. It's fantastic news. And it's all down to everybody petitioning. And, you know, the government have had to listen to us.
For some, today's news means they get to keep their independence. Also on the programme this evening.
I'm at Exmouth, where urgent repairs are being made to the sea wall before the oncoming storm.
Given the opportunity to travel for treatment, the NHS patients who've been waiting longest. Skateboarding in memory of a friend, the film opening up the conversation on mental health.
And I'm at St James Park, where Exeter City are hoping to make history tonight against Middlesbrough in the 4th round of the League Cup.
Plans to close rail ticket offices across the southwest have today been scrapped after the government asked train operators to withdraw their proposals. The plans had been widely criticised by rail users in the region, but rail operators argued only a small percentage of tickets are bought at station kiosks. For one commuter from North Devon who's registered blind, today's U-turn means she'll keep her independence. With the details, here's Andrea Ormsby.
Train travel means freedom for Sandra Morris, who's blind. She lives in Linton in North Devon and says the thought of losing the ticket office in Barnstaple had been devastating. So today's news of a U-turn has put a big smile on her face.
I've not got any worry now of deciding last minute to go and visit my friends, my family. I can go into the ticket office, get my ticket. And that means so much for me. My independence, everything is back. I'm not being classed as second-class citizen, because that's what I felt like before when they said they were going to close them. The grin on my face today when I actually heard the news was, I'll be honest with you, I was in the middle of the street and I went, yes, because I was so happy. It's brilliant news. It's fantastic news. It's, you know, and it's all down to everybody petitioning. And, you know, the government have had to listen to us.
Disability groups in the southwest share Sandra's joy and relief, but in Weymouth there's still anger.
It's really brilliant news. However, as some disabled groups, we do feel it's not fair that we've been left for a whole year or so worrying and anxious.
We've really been fighting to stand still. We've been fighting to make sure things don't get worse. And actually, it's 2023. It's almost 30 years since the Disability Discrimination Act, and we should be seeing things improve in terms of our ability to travel safely, freely and independently.
The proposal to cut hundreds of ticket offices in England had been put forward by train operators as a way to save money. Today's change of plan has been welcomed by unions.
It's the right outcome, it's a sensible outcome, and it is a vote, if you like, by the common people of this country to have a secure and a safe railway environment for people to travel and commute in.
Passengers at Plymouth railway station today were glad that ticket offices are back on track.
Many people don't have internet at home, especially older generation. So, I mean, keeping the ticket office open is quite handy and useful for the people.
Today, for example, my train was delayed and I literally jumped on the train and he was like, where's your ticket? And I said, can I buy one now, please? He went, you should have bought it in the ticket office. So if they close them, then in those situations, I would just get a fine, I suppose.
It's nice to have a ticket office there, so you can definitely go in and speak to someone, because it can be confusing, platforms and things. So, yeah, I think that's great. I didn't know that. If that's coming back, that's really good.
Sandra says she can now start to get excited about her plans to visit her family this Christmas. Andrea Ormsby, BBC Spotlight, Linton.
Well, let's turn to our political editor, Martin Oates, because there's been a lot of political opposition to this too, hasn't there?
Yes, and not least from Conservative MPs, and I suspect that might have something to do with today's decision. I mean, back at the beginning of the autumn, the West Dorset MP Chris Loder tabled a debate at Westminster to discuss this. Very striking to see Conservative MPs lining up to slate these proposals, and in some cases then going on to heckle the rail minister as he defended them. Well, I caught up with a couple of the strongest critics leaks of the plans in the southwest earlier on today.
It was going to be bad for the travelling public and bad for vulnerable and disabled travellers in particular. I'm really glad that they've U-turned on this decision, but now I worry about them closing the ticket offices by stealth, slowly reducing the number of staff working in ticket offices, closing counters, and ultimately achieving their objective without having to admit that that's what they want to do.
As you may recall, I've made the case very strongly for the ticket offices in Dorchester and in Sherborne, and for the staffing hours to be maintained. And I'm sure not just my constituents in West Dorset, but people who live across the southwest will be very pleased today to hear that news.
Well, I didn't quite manage to talk to the Transport Secretary today, but I did catch up with his assistant, or Parliamentary Private Secretary, as it's called, the East Devon MP, Simon Jupp.
Government ministers were always clear that these proposals had to meet a high threshold of serving passengers. Over 2,000 people objected to the plans in Exeter and East Devon to stations there. And I think that this is a proof that the government's listening. The Transport Secretary stepping in and stopping this is a good thing.
Is this the end of the matter then?
Well, no, as Andrea pointed out there, the government is asking the train companies to make savings, and this was kind of the big idea as to how they might be able to do that. So with this out of the window, the question is, how are those savings achieved? I mean, the background to this is that obviously during the pandemic, passenger numbers disappeared. The government's put a lot of money into the railways, and because passenger numbers haven't recovered to pre-COVID levels, they continue to put more money into the railways than they want to. Now, there is speculation that one option might be cutting services in order to save money.
OK, Martin, thank you. The southwest is set to be battered by 80-mile-an-hour winds and heavy rain when our next winter storm arrives tomorrow evening. All of our region's local authorities say they'll be monitoring the roads and will have extra staff on standby as it approaches. Well, meanwhile, Exmouth's seawall, which has already developed cracks, is getting some extra protection to reduce the impact of the waves which are expected. More now from Johnny Rutherford.
Starting to lose its strength, the Exmouth seawall. Last night, some cracks got a lot larger.
I have never seen it like all the way up here before. Normally, it's quite more exposed down the other end. Quite concerning considering the weather that we have got coming. We're right on the seafront, so we're used to all the elements. We're exposed to it all the time, but not seen anything quite like this yet.
There is a plan by East Devon District Council to address the growing problem of its cracking, but last night's movement and the worry of the oncoming storm has sparked immediate action of protecting the wall. But a long-term solution is still needed.
We reckon it's going to be about 90 metres of seawall that has to be taken down, put new foundations in, and then built back up, and the facings put back. So it's a considerable amount of engineering that's going to have to happen.
Local residents think something should have been done sooner.
So they haven't replaced the sand dunes, and I think that's one of the main problems here, and that's what's happened here. The seating area has been there for over 100 years. I'm not sure how long, but this has never happened, and I'm sure it's something to do with the sand moving away, the dunes not being here.
No, the sand has drifted from this area and it's moved down to Orcombe Point. There's a lot more sand down there than there used to be. We need to understand how the tides are working. They're working differently to what they were a few years ago, and then we can work out how we can resolve the problem of the sands moving.
What they're doing is they're just laying these big blocks at the moment for tonight because it's a high tide. Tomorrow they'll come in and dig a trench, put a membrane over the whole wall and then backfill it with sand. Ready for the storm, which is forecast to begin to hit the southwest tomorrow evening. Authorities are warning the public, if they do need to venture out in the high winds and heavy rain, to do so with the utmost care. Johnny Rutherford, BBC Spotlight, Exmouth.
A man from North Devon who has been waiting over a year for an operation says he's unconvinced by a new NHS plan announced today. Patients who've been waiting longer than 40 weeks for treatment will be offered the opportunity to travel to a different hospital. Ministers say it will empower patients and help tackle waiting lists. Tamsin Melville reports.
So here are the medals I was telling you about.
Since he was injured on duty as a policeman, Darren Carnell from Bideford has lived with back pain that forced him to retire.
At least twice a day, It's so bad it will cause my knees to buckle and I'd fall to my knees.
There was some hope when he was referred to a consultant at Derriford for an operation to insert a pain stimulator on his spine. He came off strong pain medication in preparation, but the op in August was cancelled, and he says he's now been waiting 70 weeks and counting.
What difference would this operation make to you? Are you unable to live a daily life as you would like to at the moment?
Massively. I don't contribute to society. I can't work. Every time I try and apply to do something, they see my medical history and I don't get a job. I would be able to be more physically active, which means I would be less of a burden on the NHS.
Today's launch then of a scheme offering the patients who've been waiting the longest for treatment the opportunity to travel to a different hospital should be welcome.
I go anywhere. If you're in pain and if you are in suffering, you will do anything to stop that pain.
But Darren's far from convinced the government's plan will make much difference to waiting lists and labels it spin.
If I was in charge of an NHS trust in Nottingham and I had a list of patients that I needed to treat and a gap opened up on my theatre list, would I truly offer that space to some guy down in Devon, or would I treat somebody on my own list?
Darren says he was already contacted a month ago to be asked how far he was prepared to travel for treatment, and says this approach is not new.
Well, a spokesperson for the University Hospitals Plymouth NHS Trust told us that it can't comment on individual cases, but says it's sorry to hear that this patient is experiencing delays. It says the hospital is under extreme pressure at the moment, but work continues to reduce waiting times, including creating additional theatres and wards in the coming months. Tamsin Merville, BBC Spotlight, Bideford.
Our correspondent Jen Smith is here. Darren, who we just heard from there, says this idea isn't new, is he right?
Well, technically, yes, he's correct. Patients do already have the right to ask for treatment elsewhere, but NHS England believes that by proactively contacting the people that have been waiting the longest, they can help unlock the bottlenecks in the system. But only those who don't have an appointment already scheduled within the next 8 weeks will be contacted.
So what difference do you think it'll make to the South West?
Well, across the country, it's estimated there are around 400,000 patients who will be eligible, and that's about 5% of those on the waiting lists. If you top the numbers up in the South West, across our 6 acute hospital trusts, there are around 14,000 patients in this situation. So, of course, it's a significant figure. But here in this region, we know that patients already have to travel vast distances to reach our hospitals. So it might be that we see more patients leaving the region for this kind of treatment.
And apart from Darren, what's the general reaction been to this announcement?
Generally, it's been warmly welcomed, I guess, as you'd expect, as the long waits for care are widely recognised to have a devastating impact on patients. But there are concerns it could widen inequality. Healthwatch England says it needs to be backed by more financial support to, of course, cover certain travel costs. Well, NHS providers, which represents hospitals, says it shouldn't be seen as a magic bullet. It claims that long waiting times are a symptom of years of severe workforce shortages and underinvestment in the NHS. But just to be clear, the government says that empowering people to exercise choice would help tackle waiting lists and improve access to care.
OK, Jen, thank you very much. Devon Ambulance has obtained 2 new landing sites. The charity has been working closely with the communities of North Bovey and Kings Kerswell to establish landing sites that do not need floodlighting to land. These additions to their landing network mean critical care clinicians can reach patients quickly and safely during hours of darkness.
So for the communities themselves, what that really means is they've got life-changing care able to get to them so much more quicker than relying on road crews. So if you take Dartmoor as an example, it's obviously remote, there's narrow roads to get up there. We can land in that site really, really quickly and easily and support whatever is needed in that instance. Now, that community itself have had incidences in the past where they needed but weren't able to get anyone to attend because we had no landing sites. And actually, they pushed for this as a result of that. So for the communities, they've got a speed of service. They're getting us to be able to land there as quickly as we can do. And that brings all the excellent stuff that our crews can do. And, you know, so it's a no-brainer, really, in that regard.
Walking, cycling, running. The journey from John O'Groats to Land's End has been attempted in many different ways for lots of different reasons. And now there's another way. skateboarding. And this particular journey was made in the memory of a fellow skateboarder who took his own life at the age of 28. We'll be talking to Barney Page in a moment about his friend Ben, who was the inspiration for the journey, and to Ryan Sherman, who documented it all. But first, here's a taster of their film, Land's End.
All I really saw was like a friend doing something for another friend.
It takes a kind of certain mindset, right, to want to put yourself through the mill like that. It's not like pushing is a technical challenge, right, but doing it for 25 days straight, really, you have to have some determination to kind of succeed in that. What better reason to raise awareness about something that's killing people?
Barney, Ryan, welcome to the programme. Even in 30 seconds there, it's a pretty emotional watch. This film is meant to prompt a conversation, isn't it? Tell us about Ben, first of all. Who was the inspiration for this?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ben was, and obviously tragically lost his life to suicide, and amongst all that was to bring everyone together and start trying to tackle suicide and mental health issues together, you know, and you know, it was a big feat for myself and something I wanted to accomplish. And I had other friends that they actually ran from John O'Groats to Land's End in 2012, and I kind of was inspired by that.
It took you 25 days. I mean, that's a lot of thinking time for you as well. How did you feel actually doing the challenge?
I mean, you'd weave in and out of emotions constantly. You'd be tired and you'd be really excited to keep going at one point, and then, you know, then your thoughts will get in your head. You start processing the reason why you're doing things and why you're doing this and how it could help people, how much it might be damaging myself, and, you know, so you have a lot of hours to think about even your own mental health. It's been quite a journey for both of you. Ryan, you helped make the film, you made the film, and it's showing in Exeter tomorrow. How do you feel about how it's gone?
Well, it's quite a reward, I guess, you know, to like be able to share it with different communities. And none of them have really been like coordinated. Like people reach out to us and ask if they can play it in their community. And then we get to go there and share it with them, you know. But it's quite a privilege to be able to be there with these people and then them come up to you and talk to you about something that they've gone through afterwards.
And is there something about the sport, skateboarding, that does lend itself to people talking and lend itself to bringing a community together?
I mean, it's quite a non-judgmental sport to be doing, really. Seems like a lot of skateboarders I've met along the way have other interests with different hobbies, and it's never really, you know, people don't really have any bad judgment on it. So it does seem like it's an easier space to just talk about other things. But, you know, yeah, I think it helps.
How do you think Ben would feel about the fact that you've done this and made this film and are reaching out to other people?
I'm not sure he would have liked it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, he'd never really liked the spotlight, you know. But he'd be laughing about it. I mean, we'd ever laugh for sure, but I'm not sure he would enjoy it that much.
And just briefly about the journey itself, what support, because you were both together for the full 25 days, what support did you get along the way, or was it quite a challenge with certain people?
Yeah, there was a lot of aggression on the road, you know, but majority of it was positive. So, you know, people are very impatient, especially when it hit 5 p.m. and everyone's trying to get home from work and you're backing up the traffic. Eventually, I was just like, you know what, just get on with it. It doesn't really matter.
And ultimately, what do you hope that people take away from the film?
I guess not to shy away from the conversation, you know, give people more space to like express how they feel. It's not easy, you know, navigating our way through this life. So perhaps just maybe not be afraid of the vocabulary around it.
Really appreciate you both coming in. Thank you so much, and it's well worth a watch. And if anyone's been affected by anything we've spoken about, then please do get in touch with the BBC Action Line website as well. And that also opens up a conversation, and there's lots of help and advice there as well. Now, Exeter City will attempt to make history tonight as they take on Championship side Middlesbrough in the 4th round of the League Cup. A win in front of a sellout St James Park would see them through to the quarter-finals of the competition, something the club has never achieved before. Well, our reporter and Radio Devon's match commentator John Ayres joins us now from there. John.
Yes, well, do you know what? If you're a fan of a third-tier football club, these really are the nights to savour. You've got to go right back to 1989 when Exeter City were last at this stage, losing 5-2 to Sunderland in a fourth-round replay. Now, to get here, they've already achieved quite a lot. They've beaten Luton Town from the Premier League. But tonight, Middlesbrough, it's going to be quite a test. But manager Gary Caldwell is hoping that they might just be able to go one better.
We've earned the right to be in this round. We've earned the right to try and create history. I think it's, for the players, a really big moment to go and achieve something that's never been done before. But obviously we've got a huge task in front of us. We're playing, in my opinion, an even better team than we played the last round, even though they're in different leagues. I think Middlesbrough are top team.
Well, of course, the match kicks off in just under an hour's time. I'm joined by club president Julian Tagg. For a fans-run club, just is a night like this.
Well, as you know, we've had some big nights here. We've had the big Man United game back in the day, which some will remember, and the Liverpool game and so on. Doesn't quite measure up to that, but if we make it through tonight, to a quarter-final, we've never done that before, create a bit of history.
Of course, it is such a great occasion. You look around, the fans are playing their part, as well as it being a sellout. We look over there, there's all of this silver and red foil being placed on the seat. What's all that about?
Well, it's the fans' initiative. They're the ones out there putting it out. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. We're going to find that out in a minute. But yeah, it's great that they're involved and they want to make it a special night as well.
We know cup runs can be very lucrative for football clubs like Exeter City. If you were to win tonight, if you were to get one of these amazing big clubs in the last 8, what kind of difference do you think that could make?
We never reveal the numbers, as you well know. But this is we haven't budgeted for this kind of income. The club itself doesn't have a benefactor that's going to put money in, so any money like this, which is a big game, it's going to be a sellout tonight, it's massively important for a club like ours.
Now I'm going to do that thing you always hate. Prediction?
I'm going to give you the same answers you've had any number of times. As long as the club is moving forward bit by bit, as long as we're going in the right direction, the results are always important, but not as important as the club progressing.
Julian Tagg, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Now, of course, this match, as we've said many times, is a sellout. So if you can't get here tonight, it is live on BBC Radio at 7.
Thank you very much, John. That's live on Radio Devon from 7 o'clock. Now, from pumpkin carving, trick-or-treating and wearing scary costumes, doorsteps and streets across the southwest have tonight been transformed into all things Halloween. None more so than in Tintagel, where one particular home has become a house of horror, as Janine Jansen reports.
Don't get any ideas about running away.
Terrifying, gruesome, spine-chilling. Not one, but 23 animatronics are terrifying villagers in Tintagel this Halloween.
It takes us 5 weeks to build, and it's just for the fun of it. People don't smile enough these days, and everyone does Christmas. So if we can make just one person smile, why not do it?
Come in and enjoy the festivities we have in store for you.
We just did it during COVID for people to have a laugh and giggle sometimes because you had nothing else to do. But then everyone kept coming up to us and telling us oh, you should do it more seriously, you should do it for charity. So we just started doing more stuff and getting more stuff.
Hey kids, we're the clowns your parents warned you about. These ghostly ghouls have raised more than £2,000 for charity. We hope you have a haunting Halloween.
Well, the weather outside looks pretty frightening, Dan.
Yeah, very frightening.
Nasty couple of days ahead.
Yeah, very stormy, actually. Could be quite severe, damaging winds. Could be one of the worst storms we've had for quite some time, actually, Victoria. Yes, so Storm Ciarán is on its way, arriving for us tomorrow night, lasting through Thursday as well. Quite a slow-moving storm. It'll bring us some widespread heavy rain along with very strong gusty winds. Could well get gusts in excess of 80 miles an hour, perhaps towards 90, particularly for the Channel Islands. So there are a number of warnings from the Met Office. From tomorrow evening, we've got yellow warnings for heavy rain and for the strong winds covering all the southern counties of the country. And more importantly, after that, amber warnings kick in during the early hours of Thursday morning, lasting into the afternoon for all of the southwest pretty much, and along the south coast Dorset. And the Channel Islands too will see some very strong winds, disruption to travel, power, flying debris, big waves, all sorts of issues to contend with as those winds gust to 80 miles an hour, perhaps 85 or 90 in exposure around the islands and up through the English Channel. This is the situation at the moment. We've got an area of low pressure at the moment bringing weather fronts. Some of the showers quite heavy through tonight, and then Storm Ciarán arrives for us later tomorrow and tracks its way eastwards across the country. It's a rapidly deepening area of low pressure, some very strong winds around that, some heavy rain as well. And by Friday, it's still around. It's moved a little further to the northwest, starting to fill in by then, but still bringing some brisk winds even on Friday, but certainly not as windy as it will be tomorrow night and through Thursday. And then as we head towards the weekend, this next low pressure system just merges into it, will bring us further blustery and windy weather through the weekend as well. There's been some bright weather today, though, some sunshine earlier on for many of us here in Cornwall and also in Stowe earlier. Our cameraman Logan was out at around low tide today. The cloud was already starting to build in here ahead of the rain, which has reached pretty much all of us now. But we will see some very high tides and some very big waves over the coming days. Could well get 15 to perhaps 20 feet waves around our coastline. So it will be particularly dangerous around the coast. Now, this is the radar. Just an hour or two ago, you can see how the rain has spread across the southwest into the Channel Islands. It's making its way eastwards, and now still some heavier bursts on it, but the rain turning more showery as we go through the night. A lot of cloud overnight and quite windy tonight, actually. Winds gusting perhaps 40 to 50 miles an hour as we see quite a squally line of showers moving through on a cold front a bit later in the night. Temperatures holding up, though, under the cloud and with the wind and the rain, around 12, 13 Celsius. And then for tomorrow, we've got further showers, could be quite heavy, quite thundery, but some brighter spells too, some sunshine in places. It will be a windy day, those winds ramping up further as the day goes on. And you can start to see the storm just arriving into tomorrow evening, those winds really picking up once that starts to move into Cornwall into tomorrow evening. The Isles of Scilly then seeing strong winds, gales later, and very heavy showers. And high water tomorrow. Take note of these times from around 6:30 in the morning through until about 8:30 when we're expecting the highest of those tides. All important coastal waters forecast. The winds coming in from the south or southwest at first 5 to gale 8. They'll be increasing though, becoming cyclonic, severe gale 9, violent storm 11, perhaps locally even towards hurricane force at 12. Thundery showers. Visibility good, occasionally moderate or poor, and the outlook doesn't see a lot of improvement, I'm afraid. It stays windy through Friday and blustery still as we go through the weekend with further showers. Take care. I'll see you directly.
I feel exhausted after that, Dan. Thank you very much. And of course, our BBC local radio stations will keep you up to date with the very latest on the weather as well. From all of us, good night.